We know that being in that comfort zone does not lead to success. How do you get there? Well, you got to take that uncomfortable step, right? The one that's uncomfortable to you, that you know will lead you to where you want to go. That's what we're going to talk about today. Some strategies on how to take that uncomfortable step. But before we get there, we got to build up a case. So let's go ahead and dive in. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Success Spectrum Podcast. I'm your host, Kadeem, and today I got a question for you. And that question is, what uncomfortable step have you been avoiding that you know could lead you to a better life, the life you've been seeking? Because we got to talk about this thing called the comfort zone. And honestly, the comfort zone is something that limits our success and limits our growth. And we'll talk a little bit about it as we go and ultimately give you some strategies on how you can take that uncomfortable step, which will help you to get to your desired life. But before we get there, we got to understand this is a very important topic. Why? Because discomfort usually comes before or precedes growth and success. So if we're living in our comfort zone, we'll never experience that discomfort, which will lead us to the success and the growth that we're seeking. So what is the comfort zone? The way I like to look at it and the way I normally explain it is, this is the comfort zone. And we like to live life in this comfort zone. We don't want to step outside because there's something called the danger zone, right? This is that comfort zone. Let's go there first, which we like to live in. It's our routine. It's our habits. It's what we're used to. It's where we feel safe, right? Getting up, going to work, coming back home, getting the same familiar meals, going to watch the same shows, watch TV, relax, get up and do the same thing tomorrow, right? We like to live in this comfort zone. We don't necessarily want to talk to new people because we're not used to it. We don't want to go try a new experience or, go skydiving, whatever, because it's uncomfortable to us. Outside of this comfort zone, there's something called the danger zone. We don't want to approach that danger zone. We don't want to be there because, of course, now our life feels threatened, right? Now we're out there hunting, or rather camping for the first time. We've never been in the wild. We don't know necessarily how to deal with the animals. We're camping where there might be lions, tigers, and bears, and we don't know how to deal with any of them. It's our first experience and we're on our own. That's that danger zone, right? You feel very unsafe. You don't want to get there either. There's a spot in between the comfort zone and the danger zone, which we'll talk about briefly, and it's called the growth zone. All right. So talking about that comfort zone, why is that important? Because there's a neuroscientist by the name of Dean Burnett who said in The Idiot Brain that our brains are essentially wired to keep us safe, right? They're wired for survival, not growth, which was great, because it helped us back in the hunter-gatherer days and it helps us today. Don't cross that street when the light is green and there's cars going back and forth. That's unsafe. You want to stay on the side and wait for the light to change and be red, right? And even still, when you're crossing the street, look both ways, make sure no cars are coming your way, and take your time going across the street. Now, that's important because we are instinctively wired to avoid discomfort. If our brains are wired for comfort and safety, that means we're instinctively wired to avoid discomfort because it's seen as a threat. It's unsafe. It's something that we're not used to. We're now stepping outside of that comfort zone. And ultimately, the downside of this is being in that comfort zone, it keeps us from achieving the life we desire. If you're listening to this, if you come across my videos, you're likely looking to grow, to learn, to adapt, to change, to achieve a different lifestyle, a different life for yourself and hit certain goals. And if that's the case, that comfort zone is not going to help you to achieve it, right? So being in that comfort zone, the downside of it is it keeps us from achieving our full potential in our desired life. So we talked about the comfort zone, we talked about the danger zone, and we said there's something in between. That's called that growth zone. This is where you want to live life, right? Yes, being in that comfort zone is important, but being in that growth zone is where the real growth, hence the name, happens, right? It's where real change begins. Now, what is that growth zone? It's where, I used to work at a camp, right? Some Hornets camps. And what we used to tell the campers when they were approaching something called high ropes, right? Which is, they're walking across a beam up in the air. Of course, they're harnessed in with proper safety procedures, but they're harnessed in, they're walking across this beam up in the air and they're scared, of course, because they might be afraid of heights. They might not be used to going up that high. And it's something that's a little bit scary or nerve-wracking. Right? They might be climbing a rock wall. Whatever activities we have up in the air, that's what we call it, high ropes. And one of the things we told the campers is literally that breakdown, right, of the comfort zone, the danger zone, and the growth zone. And approaching those high rope activities, that puts you into the growth zone, right? And what I'll tell you in relation to that is, majority of the time, the campers would come back at the end of the whole 9 days that they were with us and explain to us that their best experience at camp was being able to conquer their fears. Being able to conquer their fears of climbing up those ropes or climbing that rock wall or walking across that beam up in the air, because we helped them to accomplish that in their growth zone. It was uncomfortable for them. They never did it before, but they approached it, and they had friends around them who were cheering them on, us as the camp staff who were cheering them on, and they were able to accomplish it because they understood that that comfort zone, we need to get outside of it. We need to go into that growth zone to conquer this task, right? And it's the same for you. But the reason I bring that up is because the concept of the growth zone, this is where we learn and we develop new skills. This is where we learn and develop new skills, in that growth zone, right? When they climbed up those ropes for the first time, when they walked across that beam for the first time, they were learning and they were developing new skills. They were learning not only the physical activity of doing these things, or the physical act, but they were also learning to trust themselves, right? Because now I'm conquering a fear, something that's uncomfortable. And at the end of it, I'm okay. At the end of it, I feel better about myself because I took the challenge. I stayed in that growth zone. I took the challenge. I was uncomfortable, but I did it regardless. And what they were ultimately doing is they were technically practicing the Yerkes-Dodson Law, right? Yerkes-Dodson, I believe I'm pronouncing that right. It's a psychological theory from 1908 that says a moderate level of comfort, or rather discomfort, a moderate level of stress is what helps you to enhance your performance and your learning, right? It helps to enhance performance and learning, a moderate amount of stress or a moderate amount of discomfort. And I'll give you a story on that. Me learning to public speak, right? My first time public speaking, it was about just over 10 years ago. And I didn't want to do it. I'm an introvert. I'm a huge introvert, probably one of the biggest introverts you'll ever meet. I know you might not believe it because I'm on here talking on camera, but I am a huge introvert. And going up on stage for the first time, it was a little, I guess, nerve-wracking, is because what do I have to share with these people, right? And however, being in that growth zone, being uncomfortable, I still did it. And I still did it and still do it to this day, constantly, right? So continuing to perform the act and putting myself to the fire to say, just because I don't want to speak doesn't necessarily mean I shouldn't. Because there's certain information that I have, that I've received over the years, that and perspectives that I can share that might help somebody to shift their business, right? That might help somebody to shift their lifestyle for the better. So it's up to me now to continue to hold myself to the fire and to continue to learn. So over these years of speaking regularly, I've become a lot better. My performance has increased. My learning has increased, right? MJ is another example. He kept pressure on himself because when he would practice, Michael Jordan, for anybody who doesn't know who I was referring to, he would switch teams, right? On team A, he would play for that team, get them up in the score, get a lead, and then he'd switch to team B to try to beat the same score, to beat team A, who has a leading score. And he would keep switching sides. He's putting pressure on himself to increase his performance. So a moderate level of stress, a moderate level of being uncomfortable will lead to better performance and better learning over time. And now, a word from our sponsor. Do you have a child in your life who loves to color? A niece, a nephew, a son, a daughter, a neighbor? Remember when we grew up, we did A for apple, B for banana, and so on? There's something new in town. It's going to change generations financially. It's called Money Magic, ABC. This is a financial coloring book. They get fun pictures to draw, to color in. But instead of A for apple, we got A for asset. We got B for budget. We got C for crowdfunding. This is going to, while they're enjoying themselves, teach them the financial terms that we didn't know growing up, the financial terms that some of us still don't know. Financial literacy is key and vital. And instead of learning A for apple, learning A for asset at such a young age, it's going to change their financial mindset into the future. They'll be able to start off ahead of the ball, right? Ahead of the game. So go ahead and get yourself a copy and give this gift. Give the gift of financial literacy to your children and the children in your life today. Go ahead and click that link in the description and get yourself a copy. So we got to talk about why this is important and how all of this leads to creating a better life for yourself. Well, it is worth it. I'll tell you that right off the bat. It's worth it, right? And it's worth it because there's a connection between, again, discomfort and achieving meaningful goals. Like we just talked about with me being a public speaker, right? I've been paid for speaking gigs. I've been asked to come do speaking gigs, do a commercial, do these other things, right? And this all stems from my practice of public speaking. I would practice with my team. I would practice in the office, doing little things here and there. I would host events, do it for charities, and so on, right? One thing led to the next, all because I stayed in it, stayed uncomfortable, and stayed in that growth zone. So now it leads me to creating a better life for myself, because now honestly I like to speak. I'm still an introvert, but I still like to speak to be able to impart whatever wisdom I may have on whoever may be in the audience, right? So one thing leads to the next, and being in that uncomfortable or growth zone leads to that success ultimately, right? It leads to accomplishing meaningful goals. Dr. Michael Merzenich, right? He's known as the father of neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is essentially the rewiring of the brain, right? And he discovered that this happens, neuroplasticity, when we try new things or when we challenge ourselves. That's when neuroplasticity happens. And ultimately, what that leads to is building resilience and adaptability, right? Because you try new things, you are building resilience. Let me give you an example. When you're building a business, you are building resilience. Anybody who's tried business, any entrepreneur who's stuck with it for a little while, they can tell you, you're building resilience. You're also building adaptability, because business change, things change, clients might change, right? And you got to be able to adapt and remain resilient in that effort of building your business, because you had a certain goal, a reason why you started that business. You got to stick to it. You got to build and keep that resilience and build adaptability, learn adaptability so that you can shift when the market shifts. Still stay true to your vision, to your mission, but make that shift when it's required. Be adaptable. Another example is investing in yourself, whether it's getting a course, getting a coach, or getting some type of certificate. You might be putting yourself in a new environment. You might be putting yourself in front of others and doing something for the first time in front of them. As an example, I remember what helped me to get more active on social media was, shout out to Carl Phillips. It was a course that he had back during the pandemic in 2020. I want to say 2020. And what it was Solo Creator Pro. He's revamped it. Now it's called something else. But that was what led me to it. And what we had to do was basically every single day for a span of 30 days, we had to create some type of content. And me not wanting to be on camera, not necessarily wanting to be on social media, I went through this program, again, being in that growth zone. And what it helped me to do was understand social media a little bit more and start to create content and understand that it's not as difficult as it looks. And I do have something that other people might want to hear. A very select few people, maybe, but somebody, it's going to help somebody. So that's what helped me. And that's another example of investing in yourself, because you're now stepping into a new environment where it's uncomfortable and you got to do something you're not used to. You may not necessarily feel 100% safe because you're not in your comfort zone, but you don't necessarily feel like you're in danger either, because you're in that growth zone, not in the danger zone. I wrote a book for you, and it's called Wings of Abundance, your strategic guide to uplift and empower you to financial overflow. What this book talks about is, one thing I like to talk about is the financial map. There's 2 points on any map. One is where you are, and the next one is where you want to go. This book, this strategic guide, will help you to determine where you are and where you want to go, and will also help you to bridge the gap. We talk about money mindset. We talk about the application of all the information that you know about finances and all the information that's in this book for you. There's resources in the back of the book. There's bonus information in there. We talk about how to overcome debt, how to build wealth, generational wealth. There's so many different strategies in here that you can utilize for yourself to get you to where you want to be financially. So again, if this is something that sounds interesting to you or anybody you know, because it's written in a language that even teenagers could read it, go ahead and click that link in the description and get yourself a copy. Now, the moment you may have been waiting for, some strategies on how to take that uncomfortable step. Number one, we talk about starting small. When it comes to public speaking, I know it's a big fear for many, many people. Some people even put it above death, which is kind of crazy. But nonetheless, public speaking is a big fear for people. So what can you do? Instead of booking a big event, instead of going and trying to speak in front of 30 people for the first time, go do Toastmasters or something small like that, or practice, right? Do social media, take out a camera, record yourself talking and speak as if you were talking to a friend. However you want to go about it, there's so many different options, but start small. Don't try to start big by trying to book a gig where you're speaking to 100 people or speaking to 30 plus people. Start small, practice, and maybe even practice by talking to strangers. That could help you as well. Introduce yourself, ask them their name, and so on and so forth. So again, start small. That's the biggest thing, because you want to make it manageable steps instead of looking at the big picture, because it can be daunting looking at the big picture. Break it down. I've heard it this way, and I've always said it since. Break it down to the ridiculous. Don't look at the big $1 million number. Look at the small daily number that you need to get to that $1 million, as an example. Reframe fear, number 2, as opportunity. What does that mean? Discomfort is a sign for growth. So when you think about fear, think about it as an opportunity for growth, because it's not necessarily that it's going to, again, that danger zone. You're not in danger. You're not dealing with lions and tigers and bears. You're dealing with talking to somebody. So get out of that mindset of fear is bad and understand that fear is, first of all, false evidence appearing real, and realize that it's an opportunity for growth. Number 3, visualize success, right? So visualize yourself after you take that step, that uncomfortable step. What will life look like for you? Will it be, are you getting closer to that goal that you have in mind, to that better lifestyle? Or is it putting you backwards? Visualize success after you take that step, how you'll feel, how you will interact with people, right? How you might feel doing it the next time because you did it once already. Visualize that, and it'll help you to take that step. Number 4 is accountability. And accountability can come in so many different ways, so many different aspects or options. But accountability is huge in all aspects of life, really. But have an accountability partner. Hold yourself accountable. Get a journal. Put it on your phone, your calendar, however you want to go about it. Again, many options here, but accountability is another thing that might help you to take that uncomfortable step. Whether it's through coaching, get yourself a coach, and they can hold you to the fire, essentially, in the way that you need to be held to the fire, because everybody needs coaching a little bit differently than the next person. But an accountability partner, an accountability coach, however you want to go about it. Celebrate, number 5, wins. Celebrate wins. I was going to put celebrate small wins, but arguably no win is really small. So celebrate wins, right? I'm not saying take a week off because you ended up talking to one person and your goal is to talk to 50, but celebrate it. Celebrate it in some small way. Get yourself, go for a nice walk if you like to go for walks, and that could be considered a celebration. Buy yourself a book. Buy yourself something small, right? Take yourself out to dinner, whatever it might be, depending on how big the goal is. Give yourself a trip for a couple days, whatever it might be that you like, depending on how big the goal is that you accomplished. But make sure you celebrate the win in some way so that you're not doing it all for naught. So those are some practical strategies that you can utilize to take that uncomfortable step, right? And ultimately, being in that comfort zone, I know I said it a few times already, but it does not lead to that growth, to that success, that desired life that you want. If it does, great. I'm happy for you. But if it doesn't, that means you want more than where you are right now, more than what you have. I've always said it this way. I think I heard E.T. say it before, Eric Thomas. Grateful, but not satisfied. I'm grateful for what I have, but I'm not satisfied with where I am or what I have. So I'm going to continue to stay in that growth zone until I get to where I feel that I should be, quote unquote, right? Or what God has put in me and the vision that I see for myself. Until I get there, I'm staying in that growth zone. And ultimately, I'll never get there. That's the whole point, right? Is to keep going. But my point is, I am grateful, so grateful for what I have, who I have in my life. But I'm not satisfied with where I am, so I'm going to keep learning, keep growing, keep adapting, and keep going for more. My call to action for you is to identify one uncomfortable step that you can take today that will change your life, and commit to it. One uncomfortable step. It doesn't even have to be anything big, but one uncomfortable step you can do today and commit to it. If you want to put it in the bottom of this, in the description here, in the comments rather, put it in the comments. If you want to be accountable to a friend, share it with a friend, right? However you want to go about it, but have some form of accountability. Put it in the comments here, share it with a friend, share it with a loved one, put it in your phone, write the date down on your calendar. Commit to taking that uncomfortable step today, because if you don't commit to it, you'll never do it. And lastly, I want to submit to you that discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is the bridge that will lead you to the life that you always wanted, to the next best version of yourself. So, hopefully this episode was helpful for you. Kadeem McLean here, and I'll see you on the next one.